I'm doing very well, thanks, and yourself.
Yeah, not too bad. Had one of those weeks. I mean, I thought actually today that would make a good subject for us to talk about, of how sometimes when you've got to that point where you just think, oh, you feel like you've been chasing your tail all week and
Yes.
you should have taken time out for yourself. So a bit of a lesson
Mm.
for ourselves to learn, I think. Like I was saying to you earlier, that Wednesday I was just so tired, and the next thing I know, I'd really just sort of done some treatment for myself, but then felt like I've chased my tail the rest of the week, and I'll
Mm.
catch up trying to do things. That it's really good that we should actually take a lesson out of our own information that we talk about.
Absolutely. We tend to coach people. I tend to coach people and tell them um, how to organize yourself and how to organize your week and how to plan your day. And I'm a checklist. I love checklists. I've got checklists for everything. And this week, I once forgot to check my checklist. I got to the end of the day because that's one thing that I do remember is to plan for the next day. And I opened my book and realized that for the entire day, I didn't touch my checklist. I'm like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
So yes, it's been one of those weeks where
Yeah.
you think you've got everything planned. And as I say, I coach people. That's
Yeah.
how I teach them. I said, when you're feeling overwhelmed, this is what you do. And this week, I slipped up.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was just, it just didn't happen for me.
Exactly. And I think the thing is, you realize that we all talk about, I mean, I talk about overwhelm with tapping and EFT and how we can overcome that. And yet sometimes we forget to do that for ourselves, don't we? We forget that actually
Yes.
we need also that is, you give out, and you do all of these things, but we forget that actually sometimes it's good to take that time off and just spend a day on you. And we were talking about earlier as well, like you said about going to the sea
Mm.
and just spending some time with nature and those sort of things. And I love the fact that when you go to the sea and you hear those sounds, it gives you frequencies and negative ions and all of that,
Yeah.
which is really good for the body, and it helps to relax and calm the body and all of those sort of things. Or going for a walk, in the woods. That was what I was going to talk about today. um,
Mm.
and I'm thinking I should have done that myself this week. I have done
Mm.
a little bit, but not as much for me, but I was doing it for work. There's a difference,
Mm. Mm.
you know.
Mm.
And should have just sort of done some grounding, standing there bare feet on the grass, and you know taking some time out. Probably would
Yes.
have had a better productive week than trying to chase myself all week if I'd have taken that day out and done those things.
But that is exactly like you say. Look, we've got to show up for ourselves as well.
Yeah.
We show up for everyone else, but we never
Yeah.
show up for ourselves. I mean, this week I go for my hair because I started going grey when I was extremely young. So every now and again I have to like kind of hide the fact that I'm grey. And on Tuesday, I think I had a conversation, or Monday, sorry, Monday, I had a session with a client, and I kept on looking. All I could see was my
Yeah.
grey hair. And I'm like, heavens, when last did I go for my hair? So I was frantic when I got hold of my stylist. I said, you better do something about my hair because I've got to look at myself in the camera. And all I could
And
see
that
is
is
this
so
grey.
hard, isn't it, when we're on the camera? When you're talking face to face, you don't see it, do you? There, you're looking like,
Yes, because I keep on looking at myself. I eventually changed the view so I can't see myself because I don't want to see this grey.
yeah.
And but that's the thing. We have to show up for ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's like when the cell phones came out, you had these batteries that it build up and it build up, and if you
Yeah.
don't discharge it every now and again, it gets overfilled and overcharged, and you ruin the battery. And it's just come to me now. That's what we're doing to ourselves
Yeah.
because we don't allow time to discharge.
Yes.
We're running all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. We show up for everybody. We show up for this one. We show up for the next one. We show up for this. We do this. We do this. We do that. And all the time, our battery is running high and high and high
Yeah.
and high and high. We don't take time to let it just
Yeah.
discharge
Just
and then recharge it again. So
exactly.
yes, and and if we don't take the 5 minutes now and the 5 minutes tomorrow, or the 10 minutes now and the 10 minutes tomorrow, eventually you've got nothing to give.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you've got nothing to give, who's going to suffer from it? Your clients. your
Yes.
family,
Exactly. And I think
yourself.
it was interesting because I said to you the other week, I was reading that book and it's about forest bathing. And in there, he talks about 2 hours a day. Now, I'm thinking for the average person, that's hard to find.
Yeah.
You know, but we can find maybe a little spot in the garden if we can't go for a walk that we can just take those few minutes to just sit, no technology, and just listen to the sounds if we're in a nice area. If not, then maybe putting something on like my guided relaxation or my walk in the woods, and just put your headphones in and listen to it if that's the case. Because then that will help you just to listen to nature and the leaves growing, and all of those things have such a benefit on our health that it just takes that few minutes. So even if it is 5 minutes, it's better to find 5 minutes if you can't find 2 hours. And I looked and I thought, I don't think I could find 2 hours a day to go for a walk and just sit and ponder in nature. But I might be able to do that in a whole week in little bite sizes, you know. And just as you're walking along, listening to those sounds, they are just relaxing in themselves. Like if you go to the beach, don't you listen to the crashing of those waves?
Correct.
It does something to the body. We can't necessarily always pinpoint it, can we?
No.
But we sit there and go, you just come back feeling refreshed.
Yes.
And it's the same if you're out listening to the birds and walking in the forest, or, you know, not necessarily can you walk barefooted. You can at home because you know what's around you. But they all help to balance the health, balance the heart, and all those energies.
Yes.
And it's, I mean, it's like even for me sitting out here in the office, I can hear all the birds singing and things like that.
I can hear the birds. Yeah. Oh, I meant to tell you, one of the voice notes that you sent me, the birds were having such a fat conversation. I was listening to the birds. I had to listen to your voice note again to hear what you actually said to me, because I was listening to the birds and I'm like, oh, that is so awesome. Just hear those birds. And I'm like, oh, hang on, Jackie's talking. I better go back and listen.
Go back and listen again. Yeah. That's not so helpful though.
But it was awesome to listen. But Jackie, talking about this walk in the forest and taking some time out, what about people working in the cities? They don't have a forest on hand. What would they do?
So normally within a city, you might have a little green space. So there's normally one somewhere, even if it's just finding a tree that's, you know, you could sit under. And if you can find those little spaces and just sit for that time, just to switch off from work or whatever you're doing. And if it means you have to put headphones in and listen to something else to drown the noise out around you, but if you do it on a regular basis, you will tune out of that noise that's going on around you, and just taking that time, whether you might want to sit and read a book or, you know, but it's good just to switch off with no technology, really, if we can. So find a tree, find something that's, even if it's a little garden that's just got little bits around it, because you've got nature around you, you're also getting all those essential oils and whatever that's giving off. And greenery and nature has also a huge impact on our health, because you're seeing it as well. So you're not looking at four walls of other things, you know, just a bit of nature, however little it is. You know, and if you can sit on the grass, if it's, you know, it's not always clean enough, is it? But, you know, if you can sit and it's a safe environment to sit on the actual grass as well, you know. And if you can, if it's, you know, take your shoes off and put your bare feet on the ground, just to really tune in, you know, to you. That's what I would suggest. And the other week, you know, I just went and sat in the back garden on the bench, you know. So you might not necessarily go for that walk, but you're just in that little bit of green space that you've got. You know, if you're in the office, there generally somewhere there's a little bit of space where maybe there's some plants or that sort of thing. You know, not everybody's got that ideal environment. But generally there is a little park or something that's, you know, you could maybe walk to in your lunch break, or if it's just, you know, finding a quiet area, you know, that you could look out the window.
I think it's extremely important that we do make time for ourselves. It's absolutely important, because I know if I, you know, like I said, I'm crazy about checklists. I've got everything on my checklist, but sometimes I get so busy and I get so overwhelmed So what I then teach, coach my clients on as well when they get to this feeling of overwhelm, which is why I then coach them on using checklists. So I take my checklist, and in my checklist, I build in there read.
Yeah.
Just read. No matter what I'm reading, I just have to read. And then what I also then do is I sometimes put an alarm on my phone. And when that buzzer goes, it actually says time to read. And I would then get up, I would walk away from my computer, walk away from my, well, I'll take my cell phone with me, obviously, because I'm then going to set myself like an hour to just go and read. And I do that. And I must say, when I do things like that, it becomes quite easier.
Yes.
It becomes much, much easier to come back and then concentrate. However, if I do go down to the beach with all that fresh air,
you want to go asleep after. That is a problem.
That's
do that later on in the day. You need to schedule that. I finish your work an hour early today.
Yes. So if for anybody that's watching and they live at the beach, if you can get everything done in like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, whatever's your, a nice time for you, then go down to the beach and basically clear your head from what happened today. Because I'm telling you, if I go down to the beach and I come back, oh my word, I am so lazy. I'm so chilled. I'm so relaxed. And I know nothing is going to get done when I get back from the beach.
So that's definitely not good to do first thing in the morning for you.
No.
But I was thinking, just something that you said, that when you do your to-do list, or your, like you said about time blocking, is that what we should do, and we don't do as business owners, is schedule in, whether it's 10 minutes or 15 minutes, my time. Like you said, your alarm to read. Or an alarm just to go and sit quiet away from the computer for 10 minutes, because they actually say we should actually get up every half an hour and walk away from our computers, because it's very tiring on the eyes. But we don't.
No, we don't. We just keep on keeping on.
If we did that once a day, we had a schedule where the alarm went off and you just went 15 minutes, go and sit in the garden for 15 minutes with your cuppa, then come back. We should feel more recharged.
Yeah. When we were all working in corporate and we all had our corporate jobs, you would have a coffee break and you would have a lunch break.
Yeah.
And look, I was guilty of not taking my lunch breaks. Yes, I never took lunch breaks. And my coffee break was never a coffee break. It was, they bring my coffee to my desk and I drink my coffee and I carry on the computer screen with the other hand still. But I always encouraged my staff to take their lunch breaks. I said, if you don't take your lunch break and you're sitting at your desk, I'm going to give you something to do. And you can't say to me, but it's my lunch break. And then why am I seeing you? So, I always made sure that my staff went out for their lunch break. They said to me, but I don't have anywhere to go. I said, then go sit behind, then go out the building and go sit somewhere there. I don't want to see you, because if I see you, I'm going to give you something to do. So I always encourage my staff to do that. So anybody that's watching, if you are still working in a corporate environment or a business environment, and you can take your lunch break, do that. But a lot of us are now solopreneurs. We are all self-employed. One of our neighbors came here the other evening and he said to me, Leonie, who do you work for? And I said to him, I work for a terrible woman. He said, really? Who are you working for? And our daughter popped up. She says, she works for herself.
Yeah, terrible. She never lets me have any time off.
And that's exactly what we do. We don't take time off. I mean, the other day now on Tuesday when I went for my hair, I felt so guilty because, it's a big process to get this mop all brushed out and then get the color in and everything. So that was like 2 hours later that I was finished. And the entire time I was like, I had ants in my pants. I was sitting there sending emails and everything because I've got to stay in touch. I've got to stay in touch. And this week it got me.
Yeah.
Other times I'll go and I'll just go, I'm here, my phone's on silent. Sometimes I leave my phone in the car, so I'm here to relax. But because I've done so much research this month, and like I said to you earlier, I've been talking to a lot of clients trying to get information because I see a trend on certain things. So I did a lot of that this month of July. So I completely missed the opportunity of just showing up for Leonie.
Yes. And
I showed up for everybody.
That point of somebody else, the hairdressers, was that point. You could have left your phone in your bag and gone, that's my hour.
Yes.
And you probably would have felt much more better
Yes,
Not English, but anyway.
it is today.
It is today. Everything's going to go okay today. You would have coped better. And the same for me. Wednesday I took off, but actually I've probably been worth taking off a few more days because I spent days chasing and not actually really accomplishing everything I'd like to accomplish. Whereas if I'd have taken off that extra day, I probably would have done. But yeah, so it is important to think about ourselves in our schedules
Yes.
on a regular basis.
So that this one lady that I chatted to last night, she said to me, Leonie, will you ever consider not showing up for a client? I said, over my dead body, I always show up for a client, no matter what the time, no matter the day, whether it's a Saturday or a Sunday. If there's a client that books a session with me, I show up. She says, okay, so you always show up for a client. She says, but you don't show up for yourself.
Yeah.
I'm like, ouch.
Ouch. Yeah, well, sometimes we have to take the medicine, don't we? And I think that for me, that's been my learning curve this week, that we talk to our clients about making sure they self-care and they slot it all in, and we forget to do it for ourselves. And I think that's we have to take and think, step back this weekend and think, okay, so next week, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
We're going to schedule some time in. We're going to schedule that time in our to-do lists. It's going to have in there, go read, go sit in the chair, go have a cup of coffee every day, whether it's 10 minutes or it's 5 minutes. It takes us 5-10 minutes to go and have a cup of coffee. We can all do that. We'll sit there instead of sitting at the computer, think, okay, I'm going to go and sit over there while I have my cup of coffee, then come back and carry on. Life won't change on the computer.
No,
time.
They will still be there by the time we get back.
Yeah.
You know, there was now, I'm going to refer to June now because that's the last time I've actually done it, because of, like I said, I was so busy in July following up and doing a lot of phone calls and a lot of researching. But when my husband would come and say, would you like some coffee? And I'm like, okay, yes, please. And he would actually say to me, where would you like your coffee? And I said, I'm coming over there. But I would walk away from my computer, sit down in a chair next to him and have my cup of coffee. And that's when I realized how nice warm coffee is. Because every time I just had my coffee here now for July, for instance, it was standing here on my desk. They would bring my coffee and just put it down, and I would carry on working. And then after 10 minutes, go, oh, I've got coffee. And I would drink the coffee, and the coffee was getting cold, so I had to quickly chase it down because I love my coffee. Yeah. And you know, I basically forgot again in July what warm coffee tastes like because I was so busy showing up. I mean, the amount of phone calls that I made, and it's not just, hi, how are you doing? This is Leonie, goodbye. It is you find out how they're doing. And that's when I learned how many hurting people is out there again. So the coffee was forgotten. Leonie was forgotten. Yeah. Because I was showing up for all these people this month, but I forgot myself. Yeah. And last night when I was having this other conversation with these ladies, I thought, why is it that I keep forgetting to show up on Facebook? And that also got to me, the fact that I just forget, and it's irritating me because that's not me, you know. Yeah. How can I forget to speak to people? I love talking.
So when you're doing your checklist that you do, that you would, if you were talking to your client, what would you put on your checklist, and so that it would incorporate for you? So if we're now saying, look at what you would give your client, what do you put in your checklist?
Interaction on Facebook. That must go into my checklist. It's the interaction on Facebook, because even, you know, I know what that entails for me now. I'm not going to put on there, go into this group, go into that group, go into that group. I know when I see Facebook, I have to be on Facebook. I have to interact, and you click on all the groups that you're in, and you go and interact. So that is one of the things that I put on my checklist. But I think what I've also noticed, just while I'm talking to you now, you know, if I go through my checklist, the minute I do something for today and I know it's something that I have to do for the next day, it gets highlighted. I like the highlight and the tick. I like that little action there. Then I immediately write it over onto the next day. I never go. So my checklist is never for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 days in advance. It's only for the next day. Okay. So let's say, for instance, I look at my checklist this morning, and the first thing on my list was reading. I'll go, no, I'm not going to read now. I've basically just come to sit down behind, come sit down at my desk now. I'm not going to read now. I'll read that later. And the minute I go out of order on my checklist for me now, I've lost it. I have absolutely lost it.
Yeah.
So if I have to take my checklist, number one, number two, I've got to do it in the order that it's written down.
Yeah.
Because the minute I start making changes,
you end up missing bits out.
I miss it out, because then I'm highlighting when it's done. I'm highlighting it, and I'm carrying it over for the next day. And the next day I go, no, I can't read now. I've first got to see who's been looking for me on email, and then I go to my email. And then when I'm done with my email, the next thing is like, oh, I've got to follow up. I've got to speak to, because I got reminders on which client to phone at what time. So then that comes up. So I'm busy with that. And then again, the reading gets pushed out, or going down
something
to the
else does, or you miss something else because you've missed that one. You've missed the next one that you could normally follow on from. Yeah.
Because I'm also, because I don't like something to say every morning 8 o'clock I have to, and every morning 9 o'clock I have to, and every morning 10 o'clock I have to, because I get bored with that. So and that's why it is just on my list to do it in that specific order. But the minute I figure out why it is that I keep on stepping away from my checklist, you better believe I'm going to coach on that thing.
You can coach me on that thing then. Because we all do it, I think, at some point. And I think we get in a habit, but like you say, sometimes we get bored with a habit. So it also needs to be interesting to us as well, doesn't it? Because I'll have on mine social media, do this, do that, and sometimes you just think, oh, that's the same every single day. So then you think, and you
I don't feel like that.
It hasn't got the same impact sometimes. Whereas I might write an article on it's got a different impact. So sometimes maybe it's being a bit more specific with our checklist of what we actually get accomplished. So it's really been interesting. I think the other thing is what I do as well. I'll use my essential oils for that. So like this morning I use basil and rosemary and bergamot, because that's uplifting and it's good for brain focus. And then I'll use my Motivate as well. And I'll sit and do a few deep breaths, putting them in my hands, deep breathing, because that helps me to sort of set the day and start focusing. So some days I'm fine, and another day I think I'm going to struggle today, so I'll use my essential oils specifically for that area. Because I feel like I need a bit more help to focus today. But I always find if I've done that, then I do get a lot of the things that I've got on my list accomplished. Sometimes I'm not very good at writing a to-do list. I might have it on a Monday, and like I said to you, some of those things that I've written them, the month in, but actually becomes a bit boring. And so maybe I need to be a bit more specific on the things that I want to accomplish daily.
I've got two checklists. I've got two types of checklists. I've got an annual checklist, and then I've got my daily one. You can break it even further. You can break it down. So let's say, for instance, on my annual checklist now, I'll use a book as an example. So on my annual checklist, I want to write a book. That's my annual checklist. So on the 31st of December 2022, for instance, I want to have my book completely written. That's my annual one. Then on my month one, for instance, now let me think. On the month one, I'll say, pretend we're on the 1st of January now. Okay. So on the month one, I will say 1st of January, at the end of January, I want to have chapter 1. End of February, chapter 2, March, chapter 3, or depending on how many chapters I have now. So then I will sit down, for instance, and so that will be my month checklist. And my daily checklist will be write the outline for the book. Do research, or, but the other way around now. Because you first do the research, then you do the outline. Don't worry. See, I've already messed up my checklist. But so then get the research done will go onto my daily checklist. And then you can break it down like that. So once a month, I will look at my monthly my yearly checklist to see, have I worked towards any of my goals for on my yearly checklist? Have I done that? And so that's what I do. So I've got, this is my daily one. And then I've got one over there that I can't reach now. It's over there far, but that's my yearly checklist. Those are things that I want to have achieved by the end of December 2022.
Yeah.
And as I say, every now and again, I'll take that and I look and I read and I see, have I done anything on, I'm going to stretch. Sorry, I'm in the camera now. Let's see, on my yearly checklist, something that I want to achieve by the 31st of January. Let's see, what can I tell you? I've got courses that I'm busy creating. So the one is, for instance, I want to develop a full course on don't be an iceberg. It's all about anger management. So that is on my yearly checklist that by the 31st of January, that course must be done. Books must be written. Everything must be done by the 31st of December, everything about anger management. And then on my daily checklist, I will have, for instance, research that topic. So then I know that when I look at my yearly one, I have done something towards that. So the yearly checklist, you don't tick that off every day unless you finished it before the 31st. And there's a space for a little date in there. And I've just used a normal, one of these A5 little manuscript books.
Yeah.
I've just used one of those to do that. So I can put the columns in as I wish. There will be a date in when I completed it. And so that helps me stay focused on the stuff that I want to do for the year. But as I say, currently my daily checklist, oh my hat. And the thing that caused me to go off my checklist is that when I started with my checklists again, or shall I say, when I entered into July, I did not anticipate to do all the research that I have done. It was just an opportunity presented itself. And I thought, let me go and investigate that. And it opened up a whole new avenue here. And I was researching and talking to so many people. And that was not on my checklist. But because the opportunity presented itself, I went for it and I talked and I learned so much. But in that process of learning all of this, my daily checklist has suffered. So now I've got to bring it back together again. I've got to now. So maybe this weekend, maybe this weekend I'll sit and tie all of that in to see how I can work all of this into my daily checklist now and into a yearly checklist again. So I'm hoping that was my issue for July. It's because of this new opportunity that opened on the research side, and it kind of threw me, and I completely did not show up for myself in July.
I think that's an important point that you said, is about sometimes we have to regroup, rethink, review the process, see if it's working.
Correct.
And if not, then we may need to make those adjustments.
Correct.
Reflecting on it, isn't it? And I think that's important as well, that we do take that time, stop and say, right, okay, this process is not working. Why is it not working? Looking at why it's not working. Oh, okay, well, I did all this research, so I didn't have time for this. But I need to then look and say, right, okay, if I'm going to do this amount of research, how am I going to accomplish these other things that need to be accomplished as well? And then adjusting that to-do list, if you like. Something has to change, whether it means less research or it means less of social media or less of something else, so that we can still accomplish and still get to that yearly goal, isn't it?
Yes.
And making sure within all of that we have our self-care time, because if we don't look after us, then eventually we will burn out, and then we won't be any good to helping our clients with what we've been trained to do. So I think that's really key, isn't it, with everything. So for me, taking those walks, maybe doing more of those, and my essential oils will help me to take that time out, that then we've got that time to devote to our to-do lists. And maybe you need to schedule in some beach visits.
I will absolutely I will have to, because like we said now, we don't show up for ourselves, but we show up for everyone else. And something I teach my clients is that, yes, you keep on showing up for everyone else, and if you collapse tomorrow morning because you're just so dead tired, your body says, I am doing nothing, and then you collapse, I said, then what good are you to all of those around you? So I've got to listen to my own preachings here.
We have
listen to my own preaching here, hey? Because but that's what we do. We are so focused on everyone else and everything else around us that we forget about ourselves.
So I think what we should do is then on the basis of this video, I'm going to put into the comments for everybody. Let's have an accountability, and let's everybody
Yes.
post what next week, what they've scheduled for themselves in their self-care, what they would like to accomplish, and then we'll check in again next Friday, and we'll see what
Yes.
actually, all of us, including ourselves, what have we accomplished in that of our own.
Yes.
And that makes us accountable, but also shows that we're human and we also suffer from the same issues
Yes.
as everybody
Yes.
else.
We do. You know, we don't. I always say to people, we don't walk on water.
Yeah.
We are just as human as the next person. But what we also do, Jackie, and that is also something that I've seen, is that we set ourselves sometimes such unrealistic goals.
Yeah.
Like, let's take a look now at my July. All the things that I had to push up. So for me to be accountable and say to you next week, I'm not going to say to you, I will catch up with all my Facebook posts. I will. No, it's ridiculous. Take one thing.
Yeah.
Just take one thing. So let's say, for instance, what shall I put on my list? I'm going to read enough this week to actually finish my book. Now I've got to show you. There's my book.
Okay.
You know, I told you about this book. It is such oh, can you see it? But let me just sort it.
That's it. Yeah.
Man's Search for Meaning. This is such an awesome, powerful book. I literally read like one paragraph at a time from this book because it's so, to me, it's profound. So I'm going to read enough this week to finish. See, it's not a very big book.
Yeah.
But it's got so much information in. So on my list for the week, and you can ask me next week, is have you
finished your book?
Have I finished my book? Okay, that's on my list for this week.
Okay, that's your list.
Okay, yes.
So mine will be, have you gone for a walk every day?
Okay.
Just to, for 10-15 minutes.
Yes. Yes.
Because it's right there in front of me.
Yes.
It doesn't take me long to go for a walk, and it keeps me away from the computer, because sometimes I'm still sitting here at 7 o'clock in the evening.
And me, to get down to the beach, I climb in my car and I drive down, and I think it's about, it won't even take me 5 minutes to get down to the beach. It's a little bit far for me to walk because I'm not very fit. So if I drive down, it will take me about, if there's no traffic, it will take me maybe 3 minutes and I'm down at the beach.
Yeah.
And even that I haven't done because it's like clients the entire time.
Yeah.
So yes, if I can work in a beach walk for this week, that will be an added bonus.
Yeah.
But on my list for accountability, I'm going to finish this book this week.
Yeah. Even if it's a beach walk at the weekend with hubby.
Yes.
After, that in itself would just be nice, wouldn't it?
Yes, that will definitely be. But it's extremely important that we show up for ourselves.
Yes.
And if anybody can learn anything from this, is just to know that we as coaches, as trainers, as practitioners, we need to also know, and we need to also realize we have to show up for ourselves. Because what's that other analogy that they use? It's something about a cup. When the cup is empty. When you are empty, you've got nothing to give.
Yeah. Or you can look, and it also depends, you can either be half full or half empty.
Yes.
And it's our way we look at life, isn't it? And I think, if we're running on empty, then we've got nothing to share with others.
Yes.
So we need to take this time, stop, refill that cup, recharge those batteries, or discharge all of that.
Yes.
What's happened in the week. And that will hopefully make next week a more productive week. So we will see by Friday next week when we chat again.
So we better go
about productivity.
We better go practice what we're preaching now.
Yeah. Oh, it's been brilliant talking to you today, Leonie.
It's been awesome, as always, Jackie.
And so everybody, we want you to put in what you're going to accomplish, you'd like to accomplish better this week for yourself there, and we can check in again on Friday.
Most definitely.